What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. Thank you for watching. It is windy as heck out here right now. I think it's supposed to chill out here soon. Hopefully the audio doesn't sound too bad, but today I want to do some scientific testing with one of the world's most popular hunting rounds. It's actually popular for a lot of different things, but with hunting rifles, this is definitely a big one. The 6.5 Creedmoor. Now, we do have a couple videos with the 6.5 Creedmoor, but I've never properly tested the ballistics of the caliber. And I think now is as good of a time as any because we currently have probably the best hunting rifle setup I've ever had on this channel. This is the Night Stalker. So the Night Stalker is a Bergara 6.5 Creedmoor bolt action rifle in the Wooks Outdoor Furiosa Ultra chassis. It also has the D&T Hydra HS225. And the optic is really what gave this rifle its nickname because it is a thermal, so it uses heat rather than light, and you can use it in any lighting condition. Daytime, nighttime, it makes no difference. It's got an endless amount of features. We have talked about it in previous videos. I'll go over some of that here in a little bit. It's also got a camera inside the scope, so you guys will actually be able to see what I'm seeing when I shoot this rifle today. But yeah, can't recommend this thing enough. It's one of the coolest scopes I've ever had, and I will put links for all this stuff down in the description box below. Now, just to be clear, I personally don't even hunt really, so we're not gonna be dropping any big bucks out here today, unfortunately, but I do have a ton of friends who hunt all the time, and they all love the 6.5 Creedmoor. It's really flat shooting like a lightweight round with the energy and wind resistance of a heavier long-range bullet. So it kind of gives you the best of both worlds, but today, I want to finally test this little guy and see just how effective the 6.5 Creedmoor actually is. All right, guys, we have done a couple tests with the 6.5 Creedmoor. I believe in our first video, we shot a ballistic dummy head with it, and it was an epic result. Canoe is really the best way I can describe it. Canoed him. But obviously in those other tests, you can't really see the ballistics, how the bullet performs in a soft target, penetration, etc. So today we're gonna try something a little different. And for this one, we are gonna use ballistics gel. I've got two 10% clear ballistics gel blocks on the table. They're 16 inches a piece, so that is 32 inches in total that we have to stop this bullet. Should be enough. I guess we'll find out. We already know the 6.5 Creedmoor is a very effective caliber. That's why it's such a popular hunting round and stuff like that. But let's see what these bullets actually do in a soft target like ballistics gel. I'm also gonna use the tripod for this because I don't want it to be super shaky when you're watching the video through the scope, and I'm hoping the bullet might heat up the ballistics gel and we can see something on the optic. I also stepped out to probably 30, maybe 35 yards. It's not 100 or 200. These rifles are definitely capable of shooting extremely far, very accurately, but ballistics gel is a small target and I don't really see the need to go back all the way to the end of the property. So this should do the job. I got a couple different rounds I want to test. We'll see how the ballistics gel holds up. The first one we're gonna try is a soft point hunting round, and this is the Hornady American Whitetail 129 grain interlock. Obviously there's a million different rounds you can use for the 6.5. Most of them are hunting rounds, so this one should be pretty effective. Let's see how it does. Let me cycle through the modes. Okay, that's black hot. That looks pretty cool. Honestly, I think white hot will be our best chance of seeing the bullet in the ballistics gel. Black hot looks the best, but we'll go ahead and try this one. Well, you could definitely see when the ballistics gel came off the table, it was glowing quite a bit brighter than anything else. So let's go check it out. Well, it definitely sent the gel block airborne, which is always a good sign of energy on target. Let's go ahead and take a look at our result. So it went in pretty much right in the middle of the ballistics gel, and you can see our wound cavity on gel block number one. Probably 1.5 inches in, started doing quite a bit of damage, and pretty much the entire length of that first gel block is just one big wound cavity. That is definitely not a round you would want to get hit with. Extremely effective. It exited the first gel block, went into the second gel block, and probably stopped maybe 3 or 4 inches into that second block. So I would say at least 20 inches of penetration, and hopefully you can see the bullet. It did expand perfectly. Now, for those of you that don't know, contrary to popular belief, a lot of these lighter weight rifle rounds don't get as much penetration as you would think because they're going so fast and they tend to just dump their energy quickly, do a ton of damage in the first like 6 to 12 inches, and then they fall off pretty quick or just completely break apart and don't get much penetration. With the 6.5 Creedmoor, we kind of have the best of both worlds. It did a ton of damage in the first gel block, massive wound cavity, and it penetrated all the way out to 20 inches in the ballistics shell, which I would assume is probably enough penetration to reach the vitals on just about any animal out there. So that is very impressive. All right, next up we have the Barnes Vortex 120 grain TTSX. This one says right on the box, it is the deadliest hunting round on the planet. So we'll see if that's true. It is the coolest looking round we have by far. Got a blue tip. It is a hollow point. Obviously, it's a hunting round. Let's see what it does. It is a little lighter weight than the other one that we shot, but we'll see what it does. I'm gonna try to put this one above the first one. Oh yeah. Well, on the scope, I saw something fly off the ballistic shell and land on the ground. We'll go up there and see what that was. It might have been the bullet bouncing off the table or the backstop. Let's find out. Well, I just watched the high-speed footage. That was absolutely our bullet that I saw glowing in the scope. I thought it was way too bright to be something off the table or the backstop because it was obviously really hot, whatever it was. So we'll look for that here in a second. It's gotta be laying on the ground right here somewhere. It went into the gel block right there, about an inch away from our first one, and that blue tip came off literally within like a centimeter. Almost on impact, it lost that blue tip, and then obviously the damage is pretty impressive. It's kind of hidden behind the first one. Hopefully you guys can see it. Very similar in size. The first wound cavity is definitely dirtier. I'm not sure why, but the second one is about the same size, and it stayed large all the way to the end of the gel block, whereas the first one kind of shrunk down quite a bit, and by the time the bullet exited the gel, it had done most of its damage back here. This one is still going. It curved up into the left, went into the second gel block, and probably 5 inches in, it took a left-hand turn and exited out right there. And that's when it hit the backstop and then bounced back into this area somewhere. And obviously we can't say how much penetration it got because it did curve and exit out the gel block, but if our first one got 20 inches of penetration, I would say that one got at least 22, and it probably would have went even further. So it's every bit as effective, similar wound cavity, and it got even more penetration. And on the high-speed footage, I don't know if you guys saw it, the impact was quite a bit more dramatic than the first one as well. And laying on the ground, it took me a couple minutes, but that is our Barnes Vortex 6.5 Creedmoor that exited out the gel. And that is what I saw glowing on that scope as it landed on the ground. So it did expand. That might be exactly what it's designed to do. I'm not really sure. That is a very long bullet, I've got to say. Even fully expanded, there's still like an inch hanging off the back of it. Whereas this one almost looks like a 9mm hollow point or something. It's got a little bit of a tail, but not nearly as big as that one. All right, I've got one more round that I want to try. This one is the 95 grain Hornady VMAX Varmint Express. That's the box, and that is the information. The muzzle velocity on this round is 3,300 feet per second. That is insane, but that's the cool thing about the 6.5 is you can use it to hunt anything from little varmints all the way up to big giant deer and stuff like that. So 3,300 feet per second might be the fastest 6.5 we've ever shot, but there's the bullet, a little varmint round. I expect this one to probably penetrate quite a bit less and maybe do a little bit more damage, maybe break apart. Let's see what it does in the ballistics gel. And I also swapped the gel blocks around, so the one we just shot I put in the back and I brought the other one up front. So it's mainly empty besides that one little hollow point that's in there. 95 grain 6.5 Creedmoor. Let's see what it does. I don't know if you guys saw that big poof of smoke that exited off the right-hand side. I did not see that with any of the others, so. Let's go take a look. Man, high-speed cameras really show you stuff that you don't see in real time. On the slow-mo footage, you could see every time the gel block would flex, it was just poofing out little bits of smoke, and that's where our big smoke cloud came from. So this one is extremely impressive. Probably my favorite out of the bunch, honestly. So that is our wound cavity. From the 95 grain 6.5. That initial like blast of energy is absolutely incredible. Twice the size of the others that we had for sure. Obviously it did not last as long. It kind of dumped all of its energy right away, and then the bullet just fragmented into like a million little pieces. But we did have one piece of the projectile continue all the way down to probably at least 12 inches, I would say. It's dead even with our hollow point there. That was actually on the other side in the first test, but the one on top is our 95 grain bullet, and that's a pretty big chunk of lead, honestly, for how much of it broke apart back here. So it did get less penetration, of course. It's a lighter weight bullet going way faster, and for a really big animal, I would not recommend a round like this. But for everything else, that is a crazy result with a ton of damage. And 12 inches of penetration is still plenty for most situations. I'll just put it that way. So I don't know if I can really pick a favorite. I think that one was the most impressive just because of everything that it did in the gel. But man, all three of those rounds were absolutely incredible. And I can see why the 6.5 Creedmoor is a very popular hunting caliber, because it does some damage. All right, guys, before we get out of here, I have one more test that I want to do, and this probably has no scientific merit to it whatsoever, but I guess I'm doing this one for personal reasons. So, in front of our ballistics gel blocks, I am gonna place a coconut. Now, obviously with hunting rounds, you wanna make sure the bullet can get through bone and still penetrate far enough to do the job it's supposed to do. And ballistics gel is more representative of a soft tissuey target. So in my screwed up head, the coconut will be the bone, and then we'll see what the bullet does after it passes through the coconut and enters the ballistics shell. Let's do it. And for this one, I think we'll just go ahead and use a good old 140 grain full metal jacket. Not everybody's gonna buy $50 boxes of expensive hunting ammo, so let's see what this one does. I also think the full metal jacket will give us the most penetration after passing through something like a coconut. So here we go. Straight through it. Well, that was not the result I expected to see. Let's go check it out. All right, there's our coconut. Looks like that is the entrance hole right there. And that is the exit hole. So it went straight through the middle. It didn't skim it or, barely hit it. It was a direct impact right in the middle. And it just zipped right through that thing like it wasn't even there. So that's our entrance hole on the ballistic shell. It's obviously got a little coconut debris with it. And if we go over here, whoa, okay. This is not what I expected at all. So for the first like 10 inches, there's really nothing, just a tiny little pinhole. Then the bullet must have started tumbling. I hope you guys can see that wound cavity towards the end of the gel block. It's probably 2.5 inches wide at least. Just a massive tumbling wound cavity. And then look at the exit hole on our first gel block. Again, like 2 to 3 inches long where that bullet was tumbling when it exited the gel, and the same thing on gel block number 2 where it entered. That is nasty. I'll just put it that way. And then if you look in the ballistic shell, you can see where it curved down, and it looks like it exited the bottom of the gel block. Yeah, there's a big hole right there on the bottom. That might be from the 6.5. I don't think that was there before. And I assume our bullet is in the table. So obviously the bullet wouldn't be as interesting to look at. It's probably just gonna look like it did before we fired it. Full metal jacket ball rounds don't expand or break apart like hollow points do, but That is nasty, man. I mean, talk about penetration and unpredictability. That thing was tumbling like crazy, so much so that in the second gel block, it just dipped down and went straight through our table with about as big of a wound cavity as any of the others that we shot. So wouldn't be my first choice just because of over penetration, and it's not gonna dump the majority of its energy into the target, but if that's all you had, it would absolutely do the job. All right, screw it, we're gonna do another one. I got a fresh coconut up there, and this is the Hornady Precision Hunter 143 grain ELDX. I actually forgot that I even had these, or I probably would have tested them in bare ballistics shell, but we'll go ahead and do the coconut test with a hollow point hunting round. See if this one's a little more dramatic. Hit the record button. That coconut actually looks like it's kind of warm in the scope. Oh yeah. Well, it definitely did more damage to the coconut. Let's take a look at the ballistics shell. Okay, I'm watching the high-speed footage back, and that is not what I thought I was gonna see. It looks like the bullet went through the coconut, and then the pressure from inside the ballistics shell like blew back, and that is what actually split the coconut open and launched it back as far as it did. It's all the way back here. And man, I wish I had a high-speed camera right beside the gel for that, because I've never seen a gel block expand like that one did. So first of all, that is our entrance hole right there from the second coconut shot, right next to the first one. And look at that wound cavity from the top. I hope you guys can see it. It is by far the biggest one we've had all day. Like, not even close. I'll go ahead and lay it down. That is incredible. It's obviously super dirty, really brown. It looks like it dragged some of the coconut in with it. And then it looks like it went all the way through the first gel block into the second, somewhere over here. And that is our bullet right there. So it still made it probably 3 or 4 inches into our second ballistic gel block, even after going through a coconut and giving us that big of a wound cavity in the first one. Holy crap. I would like to have seen that round in bare ballistic shell. It probably would have been very impressive, but I think it might have just snuck up at the end of the video and taken first place for me. After going through a coconut to give us that result in the ballistic shell, and it's probably the coolest high-speed footage as well, I think the Hornady Precision Hunter is #1 for me. So here's one half of our coconut laying on the ground right there. Obviously, there's no liquid left in it. And then the other half just got yeeted all the way back here onto the ground. So I'll watch the high-speed footage again when I get home, but to me it looked like it basically just shot backward pressure out of the gel, and that's what launched the coconut off the table like that. So that was pretty sweet. All right, guys, there you have it. I hope you all enjoyed our latest video on the 6.5 Creedmoor. This is probably the last video we'll do with this caliber for a while. I got to send the rifle back, but I thought a good scientific ballistic shell test would be a good way to end the series. And this is definitely the most informative video that we've done on this caliber. I kind of came into this one thinking it would be just a standard, you know, not boring, but just standard video, and it ended up being pretty dang entertaining, at least in my opinion. So again, the D&T Hydra scope that we have on this, I will link all that information down below. I'm a huge fan of this thing. I'm kind of new to these type of scopes, and this is definitely the best one that I've tried so far. Crystal clear picture, a million different modes and settings, and the options are just endless with this scope. So again, it's the D&T Hydra HS225, and I will link all that information down below. That's about it. I see why people love the 6.5 Creedmoor for hunting. It is a very effective caliber. So hope y'all enjoyed the video. If you did, let me know down in the comments below. As always, hit that like button for me, guys. I would really appreciate it. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time.